Hey there, explorers! Welcome to QV Uncharted Mysteries, your new gateway to the hidden corners of history, the secrets that refuse to be buried, and the questions that still keep us awake at night. Every week, we dive deep into the world's strangest stories, from sunken cities and ancient maps to lost civilizations and cryptic artifacts waiting to be understood. And share this video with someone who loves a good unsolved mystery as much as you do. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, for staying curious, and for being part of this growing community of modern-day explorers. Before you go, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Together, let's uncover the secrets the world left behind. See you in the next mystery only here on QV Uncharted Mysteries. Deep in Siberia, hidden for thousands of years in a dark peat bog, a wooden figure rose from the earth to remind us that some questions have stared back at us far longer than any written word. This is the Shigir idol, a message carved before history found its voice. Discovered by gold miners in the late 19th century, the statue is almost 3 meters tall, though some believe it was once twice that height. Carved from a single larch tree, its surface is covered in strange, geometric patterns, zigzags, faces, shapes that no one has fully decoded. It stands there with its haunting eyes staring back through 11 millennia, asking a question we still do not know how to answer. What did it mean? Who carved it? What were they trying to say when they etched symbols into wood long before the pyramids rose from the desert sand? Some believe it was a totem, a map, a warning, a myth captured in wood before language found letters. Others think it was meant to stand watch over sacred ground or guard stories that only the carvers could read. I remember the first time I saw a photograph of it towering against a museum wall. Its features are simple, yet profound. Makes you feel small in the best possible way. A reminder that we are not the first to wonder where we come from, or why we build monuments to stand long after we are gone. A friend once asked me, "Do you think we will ever crack its code?" Maybe one day, or maybe we are not meant to. Maybe the Shigir idol is not just a message from the past, but a mirror for the present, a way to remind us that even when the words fade, the questions remain. Scientists have dated the statue to be over 11,000 years old, twice as old as Stonehenge, older than the oldest cities, yet the carvings look almost modern. Lines and faces that feel like they could have been drawn by a child today or an artist tomorrow. Next time you walk through a forest, look at the trees and wonder how many stories they hold under their bark waiting for hands brave enough to carve them. Imagine someone thousands of years from now finding what we leave behind and trying to hear our heartbeat in the wood. If you believe that sometimes the oldest questions are the ones that keep us human, hit subscribe and come with me as we stand face to face with the echoes our ancestors left behind. In a quiet museum in Iraq sits a simple clay jar small enough to fit your hand, yet large enough to spark questions that bridge centuries. Some call it the Baghdad Battery, a puzzle that hums with the possibility that ancient hands once touched the future. They call it the Baghdad Battery. At first glance, it looks unremarkable. A small clay pot, just big enough to fit in your hand. Inside it, an iron rod sits inside a copper cylinder sealed with bitumen. If you pour an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice inside it, can produce a small electrical charge. It is not much, but it is enough to make you ask why. The artifact was discovered in the 1930s, near Baghdad, among the ruins of the Parthian or Sassanid era nearly 2,000 years ago. Some researchers believe it might have been used for electroplating, covering small objects in gold or silver. Others think it could have been part of a ritual or maybe just a clever coincidence that looks like technology only to modern eyes. But if it really was a battery, then it changes the story we tell ourselves about the ancient world. It reminds us that curiosity does not belong to any one century. Somewhere in the past, someone held that little jar and wondered what would happen if they mixed metal and liquid in time. A friend of mine, an engineer, once told me that even if the Baghdad Battery was never used for practical electricity, it proves something more important. It proves that invention begins with a question. What happens if? What happens when? It is the same question we still ask today when we open a lab notebook or scribble an idea on a napkin. Sometimes when I look at photos of the battery, I imagine a craftsman long ago carefully placing the iron rod inside the copper tube, sealing the top, maybe not even knowing that he was holding a piece of the future in his hands. Next time you flip a switch or charge your phone, think of that clay. jar buried under centuries of earth, waiting for us to notice that even the simplest objects can hold a shock that crosses time. If you believe that some of the best ideas in history are still hidden under the dust, hit subscribe and come with me as we keep digging for the sparks left behind by the hands that came before us. High in the Himalayas, hidden under snow and silence, lies a lake so clear it reflects more than the sky. It holds a circle of bones waiting for the sun to tell their story. This is Rupkund. Skeleton Lake Rupkund sits more than 16,000 feet above sea level, hidden among jagged peaks and icy winds. When British forest rangers first stumbled on it in the 1940s, they could not believe what they saw. Hundreds of skeletons scattered along the rocky shore. Who were they? And what force of nature or fate left them lying side by side beneath the sky? For most of the year, it sleeps under snow. But when the sun melts the ice, the past rises to the surface. Skulls, femurs, ribs, some still wearing fragments of clothes and jewelry from another time. For decades, people guessed. Some thought they were soldiers from an ancient king's army lost in a blizzard. Others said they were pilgrims caught in a sudden hailstorm that no one could escape. In the early 2000s, scientists tested the bones and found that they did not all belong to the same group or time. Some were more than 1,200 years old, others just a few centuries. Different ancestries, different journeys, yet all ended here, in this frozen circle above the clouds. One theory says they were caught in a freak storm. Imagine standing on a sacred trail high above the tree line. When the sky darkens without warning, stones of ice the size of cricket balls hammer down, breaking skulls, forcing travelers to huddle together and wait for mercy that never comes. Think of those whose final stories sank beneath its frozen silence, waiting for the sun to bring them back just long enough for us to ask why. A friend of mine once trekked to Rupkund and told me how strange it feels to stand there looking into that still water. The lake reflects the sky so clearly that it feels like a doorway between now and then, a mirror where you see not only yourself, but the reminder that every step we take into the unknown is written somewhere, even if it is in bone. Next time you see a calm mountain lake, remember Rupkund? If you believe that some places keep their answers buried in plain sight, hit subscribe and come with me as we stand by the shores where the past floats just beneath the ice. In the quiet village of Milton in Scotland, there is an old stone bridge that looks harmless, but carries a story that makes people hold. Their dogs close and wonder what waits in the mist beyond the stones. But for decades, locals have whispered about what happens there when a dog crosses it alone. To people, it is just another footpath, but to dogs, it seems to be something more. Since the 1950s, dozens of dogs, maybe even hundreds, have jumped from its walls, falling to the rocks below. Some survived, and some did not, but many owners say the same thing. There was no warning. One moment their dog was sniffing the stones, the next it was over the edge, as if called by something only it could sense. In the quiet village of Milton in Scotland, there stands a bridge so ordinary you might drive past it without a second thought. Its real name is the Overtoun Bridge, built in the 1800s, spanning a deep ravine, surrounded by misty woods and ancient estate grounds. The bridge's walls are low enough for a curious nose to tip forward too far. The wind in the gorge might confuse a dog's senses, make a familiar smell feel like it is coming from nowhere at all. But still, no one has proven exactly why this bridge, and only this bridge, makes so many pets leap into the void. Scientists have searched for logical answers. Some believe the scent of small animals like mink might draw dogs over the side. I remember reading the story of a local man who stood helpless as his golden retriever suddenly bolted toward the parapet and vanished over the side. He said the dog did not bark, did not hesitate, just stepped off the stone, as if following an invisible path. A friend once told me maybe the bridge is not cursed. Maybe it is just a reminder that the world is stranger for those who see and smell more than we ever could. Others say a prayer or hold the leash tight and hurry to the other side. The bridge stands there silent and cold, waiting for the next set of paws to cross its ancient stones. Dogs trust their instincts. They do not ask why, they just go. Some locals refuse to walk their dogs across Overtoun at all. We forget that sometimes the unseen is real, and sometimes a question has no safe answer. Next time you walk your dog down a quiet path, listen to what it hears, feel the world through its senses. One quiet night in 1977, while the world slept, a single whisper crossed the stars and tapped an old neat computer screen in Ohio. It was so sharp, so perfect, so out of place that it left behind. Just one handwritten word. Wow. A million stars above us, cold and silent. Or maybe not so silent. On August 15th, 1977, a man named Jerry Emmon sat in front of that old computer screen at Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. It's just a spike of sound that should not have been there, a cosmic tap on the shoulder. He was scanning the skies for signals, anything unusual, a whisper from beyond. Most nights were static and boredom. But that night something came through. A single burst of radio energy, sharp and clean, lasting just 72 seconds. It was so perfect, so strange, so unexpected that Jerry circled it on the printout and scribbled one word in the margin. Wow. That scribble is why we call it the wow signal today. No code, no message. Scientists tried to find it again. They pointed their dishes to the same spot night after night. Nothing. To this day, no one knows where it came from. A distant star, a reflection off a satellite, or something else watching us from the dark saying hello just once. I love telling this story because it reminds us how huge and how quiet the universe really is. Sometimes I imagine Jerry Emmon alone in that lab, staring at the numbers and realizing this should not exist. But here it is. A student once asked me, "Do you think it was aliens?" I told him maybe yes, maybe no. It is the reminder that while we build rockets and telescopes, there is still so much we do not know. So much waiting in that deep black ocean above us. Maybe it was just a glitch, a stray signal bouncing through the galaxy. Or maybe it was an invitation and we missed it. It makes you wonder how many other signals pass us by too quiet for us to notice. The beauty of the wow signal is not just the mystery itself. Would you circle it in red pen like Jerry did, hoping that somewhere far away someone will find it and whisper, "Wow." Next time you are standing outside at night, look up. Somewhere in that endless dark, a signal once crossed space and found us just for a heartbeat. And if you could send one word back across the stars, what would you write? In the frozen silence of Russia's Ural Mountains, a mystery waits beneath the snow, where 9 young hikers stepped into the cold and never came back the same. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass, a question carved into ice that refuses to melt away. In 1959, 9 young hikers, strong, smart, fearless, set out into Russia's Ural Mountains. Their goal was simple: reach a peak called Otorten. In the language of the Mansi people who live there, Otorten means don't go there. But they went. No one knows exactly what happened next. Weeks later, rescuers found their abandoned tent slit open from the inside. Boots, coats, gear left behind in a frozen panic. The hikers fled barefoot into a deadly storm scattered in the snow. Some were found with crushed ribs, cracked skulls, but no signs of struggle, no other footprints but their own. One hiker's tongue was gone. Radiation clung to their clothes. It was as if the mountain itself decided they could not leave alive. I remember the first time I read the Dyatlov files yellowed. Reports black and white photos of smiling faces before they vanished. It made me wonder what force can make 9 seasoned hikers rip through their own tent and run half-dressed into a blizzard at midnight. Over the decades, explanations have piled up like snowdrifts: an avalanche, secret weapons tests, a freak wind called infrasound that makes the brain spiral into panic. Each theory solves something, but never everything. A friend of mine, a Russian historian, once told me the Dyatlov Pass is not just a place. It's a question that never stops asking itself, and maybe that's true. Maybe some mysteries exist to remind us that nature, for all our maps and satellites, still has corners where our logic cracks like thin ice. Some nights I look at the snowy peaks in old photos and think of those 9 souls, young, curious, standing on the edge of the world with no idea that a moment was coming when fear would rip through them faster than any storm. So next time you hear the wind howl outside your window, ask yourself, what would it take for you to flee barefoot into the dark, leaving warmth and safety behind? And what secrets still wait in the mountains under the snow inside the trees? Watching patient silent? In the endless Siberian wilderness more than a century ago, the sky reminded us how small we really are when it shattered a forest in silence and left behind only questions burned into the trees. On June 30th, 1908, deep in the remote Siberian wilderness near the Tunguska River, the sky exploded. Local hunters and nomads spoke of a blinding blue light tearing across the dawn sky, hotter than the sun. A shockwave rolled through the taiga, flattening trees like matchsticks, knocking people off their feet hundreds of kilometers away. In an instant, 80 million trees fell outward from an invisible point, a circle of destruction bigger than any city. When scientists finally reached the site years later, they found no crater, no chunks of meteorite, just endless rings of scorched trunks, all pointing away from a vanished epicenter. No one could quite explain how something so powerful could leave behind no trace except emptiness. Most believe a cosmic visitor arrived that morning, an asteroid, or a comet, exploding in the atmosphere before it could touch the ground. The blast was stronger than 1,000 atomic bombs, yet it spared the Earth a massive crater by burning up in the sky. But the truth is, no one saw the rock, no fragments have ever been found, and so the questions remain buried under frost and moss. Some wonder if it was something stranger, a rogue chunk of antimatter, a sliver of a black hole, or a forgotten piece of the universe, brushing against ours for a heartbeat, then vanishing as if it had never been there. Remember reading a diary from a trader who saw the sky burn that day. He wrote that he felt a wave of heat on his face, thought the world was ending, and then watched the forest go silent again. When I look at the stars above Siberia in old photos, I wonder how many Tunguskas have come and gone unseen, how many cosmic reminders pass overhead, while we sleep, reminding us that our planet is just a tiny, fragile target drifting through an ocean of space. Next time you see a shooting star crossing the night sky, ask yourself, what if the next one does not burn up before it touches the Earth? And chaos hit, subscribe and join me as we keep listening to the whispers of what the sky leaves behind. What secrets do the trees still hold in that lonely circle of flattened trunks, still standing guard over a mystery older than any answer we have found so far? If you believe the past is full of stories that remind us how thin the line is between silence, on a quiet beach in Australia, the waves still wash secrets ashore, where one December morning, a nameless man lay by the sea with only 2 Persian words to tell his story was over. On the first day of December 1948, a man's body was found lying on Somerton Beach near Adelaide, Australia. He looked calm, almost like he had fallen asleep facing the sea. He wore a neat suit, polished shoes, but carried no wallet, no ID, no keys, nothing that could say who he was. Inside his pocket, police found something strange, a tiny scrap of paper hidden deep inside a secret pocket stitched into his pants. Two words written in Persian, Taman Shud, which means it is finished. The autopsy found no clear cause of death, no sign of poison or violence. His organs looked normal, except they did not work. It simply stopped living, as if someone had pressed a hidden switch. That small clue turned this man into the center of one of the most haunting mysteries of the last century. They searched every missing person file, found nothing. They sent his fingerprints to other countries, no match. Not far from where they found him, an abandoned car turned up unlocked inside. They found a torn book, the missing page matched exactly. In the back of that book, someone had scribbled letters, numbers, a strange code that no one has cracked to this day. Others say he was a man with a broken heart, choosing a silent exit with a poet's farewell tucked in his clothes. Decades later, scientists tried to unlock his identity through DNA. A few leads came close, but the final answer still drifts out there like a message in a bottle, never reaching shore. Some people believe he was a spy sent to Australia at the dawn of the Cold War, a time when quiet men in suits carried secrets heavier than bullets. I remember staring at the old black and white photo of him, his hair combed, his face at peace, like he still has something he wants to tell us. If we just knew how to listen. But a reminder that some lives pass through the world, like whispers touching no one but leaving behind a question that refuses to fade. A friend once told me maybe the Taman Shud case is not just a puzzle to be solved. Next time you walk along a quiet beach, watch the tide roll in, and think of him, the man with no name. No shoes out of place, only 2 words left behind to say that for him the story was over, even if ours is not. If you believe the past still hides stories waiting for curious eyes, hit subscribe and join me as we follow the clues that history leaves behind in the sand. Deep in the wild heart of Canada's Northwest Territories, a valley lies hidden behind legends of gold. Vanishing men and questions no road dares to cross. This is the Nahanni, the Valley of Headless Men. Deep in the remote wilds of Canada's Northwest Territories, there is a place like that. Locals call it the Nahanni Valley, but many know it by another name, the Valley of Headless Men. The stories began more than a century ago, when gold drew men into this rugged land of hidden rivers, hot springs, and jagged cliffs. Some found gold, some found nothing, but some found something worse. Prospectors, trappers, and adventurers who braved the valley's secrets often vanished or left behind only bones. Rumors grew that the valley was cursed or guarded by ancient spirits. Some said hidden tribes protected a secret that outsiders were never meant to find. Two brothers were among the first. They set up camp along the river and never returned home. Searchers found their bodies headless, their gold, untouched, their mystery just beginning. In the years that followed, more bodies turned up, more heads missing. I remember reading an old explorer's journal describing the Nahanni as beautiful and cruel at the same time. It's a land where steam rose from hidden springs while the wind cut like knives. Even today, few people dare to camp alone in its shadows. Pilots fly over its misty canyons, but few touch down unless they must. Think about the men who went in with shovels and dreams and never walked back out. Ask yourself if you would have the courage to stand on that riverbank, knowing that nature keeps its sharpest secrets hidden behind stories that make the bravest step back. Some say the truth is simple. The Nahanni is wild and unforgiving. Cliffs crumble, rivers flood, storms appear without warning. Maybe the people who died there were unlucky or careless or too determined to chase a gold dream through a land that does not forgive mistakes. It asks if you really want to know what waits out there in the wild. Some questions you carry home. Some questions stay behind with the wind and the rocks. But even so, the heads missing, the bodies left as warnings keep the whispers alive. A friend once told me that the Valley of Headless Men is not just a place on a map, it is a test. Next time you see an empty stretch on a map, think about the Nahanni Valley. If you believe that some corners of the world are meant to remind us how small, as curious we really are, hit subscribe and come with me as we keep searching for what waits in the quiet places the maps forgot. Not so long ago, hidden in the misty caves of southwest China, archaeologists uncovered a secret that shakes the branches of our own family tree. They call them the Red Deer Cave People, a reminder that our human story might be less alone than we once believed. What if I told you that not so long ago? There might have been another kind of human walking the earth beside us, and we only just found out? High in the misty mountains of southwest China, deep inside ancient limestone caves, archaeologists uncovered bones. At first glance, they looked ordinary until they didn't. This is the mystery of the Red Deer Cave People, a name that sounds like a legend, but it's very real. The skulls were thicker, the jaws heavier, the features somewhere between us and something older. Some say they looked like a time capsule, not quite modern humans, but not Neanderthals either. A missing branch on our family tree. The Red Deer Cave People may have lived just 14,000 years ago, long after modern humans spread across Asia, long after we thought we were alone. Here's the most haunting part. These bones aren't tens of thousands of years old, like Neanderthals in Europe. I remember reading that for the first time and feeling a strange chill. What if as we built our villages and lit our fires, there were others close enough to see our smoke in the distance? Did we meet them? Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. Maybe when you stand alone in a forest and feel the hair on your neck rise, some ancient part of you remembers that we were never truly alone. Maybe they lived, hunted, sang, and slept under the same stars, never knowing their line would end and ours would go on. Did we talk, trade, share stories by the same rivers? Or did we push them into the shadows of these caves until the last of them left only bones behind? A fellow researcher once asked me, "Do you think they knew they were the last of their kind?" I think about that question a lot. Science is still piecing together their DNA, hoping to find out if they left a trace in us, a gene, a fragment, a whisper in our blood. So next time you see a cave on a mountain trail, stop for a moment. Imagine the flicker of firelight inside, shadows on the stone, voices telling stories we'll never hear again, and wonder, how many ghosts of our own kind are still waiting to be found under layers of dirt and forgotten time? In a quiet valley hidden in the mountains of Norway, the night sky sometimes refuses to sleep. Here in Hessdalen, the darkness flickers with lights that dance just beyond the reach of any simple answer. In a small valley in central Norway, there is a place where the darkness does not always sleep. It is called Hessdalen, and for decades people have gathered there to watch the sky do something it should not do. Floating lights that dance above the valley, flickering red, blue, white, moving slowly or darting like they have somewhere to be. Sometimes they hover for minutes, other times they flash and vanish as if the mountains decided to blink. Others whisper about visitors from somewhere far away using this quiet valley as a beacon or a doorway. Locals have seen them for as long as they can remember. They have measured unusual electromagnetic waves, strange bursts of energy, things that make sense on paper, but never fully explain the show. No one knows exactly what causes the Hessdalen Lights. Scientists have camped in the freezing fields with cameras and sensors. Some say it is rare earth metals in the ground, reacting with the air, creating a natural battery that sparks when the conditions are just right. I remember watching a grainy video of the lights for the first time. Just a bright ball drifting above the trees, then splitting into two like a thought changing its mind. He said the valley is so silent you can hear your own breath echo off the snow. Then out of nowhere a small bright orb appeared, hovering above the field. He did not feel afraid, just very small and very awake. It did not feel like a trick. It felt like something alive. Something reminding us that the sky can still surprise us. A friend who visited Hessdalen once told me about standing alone at night waiting for the lights. Remember that some places glow not because they are haunted or holy, but because the earth and the air have secrets they will not give up easily. Maybe one day we will understand it completely. Maybe it is just cold science waiting for the right formula, the right measurement, the right answer. Or maybe part of its magic is that it refuses to be pinned down, that it flickers just beyond our reach, daring us to keep looking up. Next time you see the northern sky clear, and still think about Hessdalen and its restless lights. High in the Andes, long before ink-stained parchment or letters carved stone, the Inca wove their stories into cords of colored string. These strands swung from a messenger's belt, carrying secrets across mountains, rivers, and centuries. This is the mystery of the quipu, the strange and beautiful knot records of the Inca. The Inca built one of the greatest empires the world has ever known, stretching over mountains, rivers, and jungles. Yet they left behind no alphabet, no carved stone script like the Egyptians or the Maya. Instead, they tied their secrets into cords. A quipu looks simple at first. Colored threads hanging in clusters each, not a tiny bulge in the fiber. But together these knots held the empire's census taxes, harvests, and maybe stories or songs passed from one keeper to the next. The strings were faded but still strong after centuries buried in dry mountain tombs. I remember leaning in close, trying to imagine the hands that tied each knot. Did they know they were binding not just numbers, but the heartbeat of an empire? I once stood in front of an ancient quipu displayed behind glass. A historian friend once told me that we have cracked some parts of the quipu's code. The basic numbers we understand. But there is something more hidden in the way knots were arranged, the colors, the gaps, the way they flow like lines of poetry, without words. Some quipu keepers were killed, others silenced. Threads were burned or lost. Today, only a few remain scattered in museums or locked away in old vaults, waiting for someone to listen with fresh eyes. Some believe the quipu might hold entire histories told in a pattern only a trained mind could read. What haunts me is the thought that when the Spanish arrived and the Inca fell, much of that knowledge vanished. Next time you hold a piece of string, twist it between your fingers and imagine telling your life story in knots. Imagine your name, your hopes, your family woven into a cord strong enough to outlast stone and paper. If you believe that sometimes the simplest things hold the deepest wisdom, hit subscribe. And stay with me as we untangle the forgotten languages that still whisper from the past. Hidden among the ancient scrolls found in desert caves lies one that does not pray or chant. It is hammered into copper, a map of secrets waiting for hands steady enough to follow its buried clues. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in caves near Qumran, there is one that stands apart from the rest. It is not ink on fragile parchment or leather. It is hammered into metal waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to follow its clues. They call it the Copper Scroll. It's unlike the other ancient texts filled with prayers and laws and hymns. The Copper Scroll is a list. Line after line, it describes hiding places buried deep under ruins, behind walls, beneath cisterns. Treasure after treasure measured in talents of gold and silver jars, of coins, sacred vessels, enough wealth to make an emperor tremble. Scholars believe it dates back to the Second Temple period around 2,000 years ago. Some say it was written by priests, trying to keep sacred treasures safe from invaders. Others think it might be linked to the legendary lost riches of the Jerusalem temple hidden away before it fell to Rome. But here is the twist. Despite decades of searching, no one has ever found the treasure. The sites it mentions have been scoured by archaeologists, treasure hunters, and dreamers armed with shovels and maps and half-forgotten legends. He gave up everything, convinced he was only one clue away from unearthing rooms lined with gold. Died poor, but he died believing he was right. Some swear parts of it may lie under the sands of Qumran. Others believe the clues were meant to mislead, hiding the truth in plain sight. I remember reading an old story of an explorer who spent his life chasing the copper scroll as promise. A friend once asked me, "Do you think the treasure's real?" Maybe that is the wrong question. Maybe the true treasure is the scroll itself, a glimpse into the fears and hopes of people who knew their world might fall but refused to let its light vanish completely. Next time you hear about lost gold or hidden chambers, think about the copper scroll lying in a museum, its metal etched with secrets waiting for hands steady enough to dig and a heart patient enough to believe. If you believe that sometimes the greatest treasures are not what we find, but what we keep looking for, hit subscribe. Want to join me as we follow the clues that history left behind? In China, beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence, lies a woman so perfectly preserved that her skin still holds the warmth of secrets. She is called the Lady of Dye, a reminder that even in death, the past can still breathe close enough for us to hear. They call her the Lady of Dye. When archaeologists opened the massive wooden coffins inside, they found something no one expected. Her veins still held traces of type A blood. Her hair was intact. Even her organs had kept their shape, as if she had drifted off to sleep and simply forgot to wake up. Her real name was Xinjui. She was the wife of a Han Dynasty nobleman, living over 2,000 years ago. Inside the ancient tomb, the space is imbued with the patina of time, while the faint golden glow of a flickering candle dances on the stone walls. At the center rests the carefully wrapped body of a noble woman, lying neatly on a stone slab. Her face is calm, as if she has been peacefully asleep for centuries. Surrounding her are old wooden chests, slightly ajar, revealing luxurious clothing, intricate jewelry, and small treasure symbols meant to guide her spirit on its eternal journey. The stone floor and tomb walls bear faded patterns, reminiscent of ancient Chinese or Egyptian tomb art. Maybe she did not. Maybe she trusted the earth to hold her secrets forever. But now she reminds us that no wall stays sealed forever. No secret stays buried forever. When she died, she was buried deep inside an elaborate tomb near Changsha. You will stand there face to face across 2,000 years and wonder what secrets she still holds behind her closed eyes. For centuries, her resting place lay undisturbed, while dynasties rose and fell above her. In the 1970s, workers digging an air raid shelter accidentally uncovered her tomb. There was something unsettling yet profoundly moving in seeing a person from so long ago, so real, so close. She was not a statue or a skeleton, but a reminder that those who came before us felt love and loss and hope just as we do. There lay Xinjui wrapped in layers of silk. But she was not a dry husk like other ancient mummies. Her skin was still soft. Doctors who examined her were astonished. How could a body stay so perfectly preserved for 2,000 years without modern chemicals or freezing? When I first read about her, I could not stop staring at the photos. A student once asked me if I thought the Lady of Dye wanted to be found. If you ever visit the Hunan Provincial Museum, you can see her yourself lying beneath glass. Next time you think the past is gone, remember, Lady Xinjui. Some voices are so carefully preserved they still speak long after we are gone. If you believe that history is not just in books, but in the quiet resting places where the past waits to be uncovered, hit subscribe. And come with me as we listen to what it has to say. In the corner of Sweden's Royal Library rests a book so heavy to grown men can barely lift it. They call it the Codex Gigas, but those who know its shadows call it something darker. The Devil's Bible. Among all the manuscripts that survived the Middle Ages, one stands in the shadows, both a wonder and a warning. Imagine a single monk locked in a stone cell by candlelight quill, scratching parchment through endless nights. By morning, the monk's cell held a book so massive that two grown men can barely lift it. They say it would have taken decades to finish, not a single night. But that does not make the story any less haunting. Because within the Codex Gigas lies more than scripture. It contains forbidden texts, exorcisms, medical cures, strange incantations, knowledge meant to protect or condemn depending on who reads it. And deep inside, on one chilling page, is a portrait, a full-page drawing of the devil glaring out as if he knows you're watching. Legend says he broke his sacred vows and in punishment faced a task impossible for any mortal: to write the world's largest Bible by himself in one night. Desperate, he made a pact not with God but with something far older and darker. Of course, scholars today have tested the ink, the parchment, the handwriting. I remember the first time I stood before it in Sweden's Royal Library. The pages were yellowed thick as armor. The air felt heavier around it, not because of superstition, but because you can sense what it meant to people who opened it. Centuries ago, maybe the real pact was not with a demon, but with his own desperation to create something so grand it would outlive him. And it did. Long after his bones turned to dust, the Codex Gigas still draws us in proof that words, when bound in leather and mystery, can feel alive. To them, a book wasn't just paper and ink. It was power, faith, fear, all bound together. Did he truly believe he was watched by dark forces as he wrote line after line? Or was he warning us that even the holiest text can hold shadows between its words? A friend once asked me, "Do you really believe the monk sold his soul to finish it?" I smiled. But if you're quiet enough, you might feel the same question the Codex Gigas asks. What would you sacrifice to be remembered forever? What fascinates me most is not the devil painted inside, but the man who painted him. Next time you stand in a library, run your hand along the spine of an old book and listen. Have you ever stood at sunset or woken up at dawn and wondered, is there something hidden on that horizon waiting for me to see? There are moments so rare that even the most seasoned sailors, who have crossed endless oceans, may only witness them once or twice in a lifetime. One of those moments is the green flash. They say that when the sun touches the edge of the horizon, or just lifts off it, if you're patient enough, lucky enough, and observant enough, you'll catch a single, fleeting burst of green light. But scientists have proven it's not an illusion, not a romantic sailor's tale meant to charm dreamers. It's a real optical phenomenon created by the refraction of sunlight through Earth's atmosphere. It vanishes in a heartbeat. Many believe it's just a myth. But here's what I keep asking myself. Why does something that's scientifically explained still hold so much wonder for us? The green flash is just light, yet this flash has inspired countless stories passed from one generation to the next. Long ago, seafarers believed that whoever saw the green flash would gain the power to see through lies. Some whispered that it was a sign of a promise kept, that when you returned home, someone would still be waiting for you at the shore. A reader once told me that while standing on the deck of a fishing boat, braving the cold North Atlantic, he saw the green flash, just once in his entire life, and he carries that moment with him forever. No one forced him to believe. No one demanded proof. But for him, it was a sign that nature still knows how to whisper to those willing to listen. Have you ever felt that way? It teaches us something simple. What is rare and fleeting is what makes us long for it even more. It's watching the sun dip below the sea, secretly hoping to catch a sign, a subtle nod from the universe, reminding you that you're still connected to something vast, something timeless. Today, meteorologists can explain it in detail. As sunlight passes through the atmosphere, blue and green wavelengths bend more than red ones. In the perfect conditions, cold, clear air, a flat horizon, your eyes might just catch that flash of green as the sun winks goodbye. But because it appears for only a second, perhaps once in a lifetime, we cherish each sunrise, each sunset, just a little more. Maybe they live right here, in our willingness to believe, to wait, to lift our gaze and to leave space in our hearts for hope. Yet no matter how many physics formulas we write, the green flash remains as enchanting as an unsolved riddle. If it happened every day, maybe we'd never bother to look up. Perhaps the greatest mysteries aren't out there somewhere far away. So next time you watch the sun set or rise, look carefully. Maybe you too will catch the green flash and wonder, could it be that the universe still has secrets to whisper? It's just for those patient enough to listen? Centuries ago, in the roar of icy seas, Viking ships carved their paths through storms and salt spray, carrying blades that still whisper through history. Among all the weapons of that age, one name stands out, etched into iron so pure it turned a sword into a legend. Ulfberht. Etched into the blade, this single word transformed iron into something close to magic. To hold an Ulfberht was not just to carry a sword, it was to wield a mystery. Centuries later, when archaeologists unearthed these swords from Viking burial mounds and riverbeds, they found something extraordinary. The steel was so pure, so high in carbon, it matched the quality of steel that Europe would not master for another 700 years. How did these ancient smiths forge metals so advanced? Some say the Vikings traded for this knowledge with the East, crossing rivers and deserts to bring back the secrets of crucible steel. Others believe the Ulfberht blades were made by a small elite group of master smiths, guarding their secrets as fiercely as any king guarded his crown. When I hold a replica of an Ulfberht sword, yes, I have one in my study, a gift from a fellow history lover, I cannot help but imagine the hands that once drew it. Hands calloused by oars and frost by war and wind, yet steady, forging an edge that could split armor like cloth. It is a reminder that progress is not always linear, that sometimes a spark of brilliance flickers centuries ahead of its time, only to be lost, buried under layers of forgotten wars and shifting borders, waiting for modern hands to dig it up again. Maybe to them it was just survival to have the strongest steel when your life depended on it. Are there skills, secrets, tools lost in time waiting beneath our feet? So next time you see a rusty relic in a museum, pause for a second. Imagine the blade polished the runes, gleaming the Viking who lifted it high under a stormy sky. And ask yourself, how much of our past have we truly uncovered? But deep inside, perhaps they knew that someday, long after their longships turned to dust, their craftsmanship would still command our respect. One reader once asked me, "Do you think they knew how ahead of their time they were?" I smiled when I read that. Maybe they didn't. The story of the Ulfberht is more than a tale of steel. I often wonder if we could forge something so advanced back then, what hidden knowledge might we rediscover tomorrow?